Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello. I'm trying to think. It's probably, oh my God, it might be 30 years that I've done a show after a State of the Union address. Come on, don't I get a medal or something for that? I mean, I take notes during it. My house is being renovated. I literally could not find anything to write on, so I took no notes. I just listened like a good citizen. Hello, by the way. I thought Barack Obama gave a wonderful speech last night. It was marred only by having to look at Paul Ryan sitting behind him. I mean, God, I finally see why my mother said what she said so long ago about Paul Ryan. He looks like Dracula. He does. There were times when he was sitting there with, he has the hair and those sort of like big eyes and big ears and dark, and he looks like Dracula. And he looked like a very uncomfortable Dracula during this. This was his first to sit up there along with the president and vice president, and he really looked uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable. And I guess I alternated between enjoying his discomfiture and also wanting them to like sort of remove him from the screen so I didn't have to look at his Draculian visage. My father talked like that. That I could hear my dad. Hey, Dad, did you hear all that? I said discomfiture. And I said Draculian or something. I made that one up. I don't know. So, I was surprised that, given the fact that right up until the president entered the chamber, as they say, entered the chamber, he the media that were carrying the speech were all a Twitter about the capture of the two Navy ships, and that Americans, as the president spoke, were being held hostage in Iran. And how, I mean, that's a big deal. We are not exactly the greatest terms with that country. In fact, that's a country that has held Americans hostage before for a long time. And, of course, immediately Americans held hostage. Republicans go nuts. It's like we're supposed to, he's weak! Because I guess he didn't immediately call out the Sixth Fleet and bomb them back into the Stone Age. I thought it was interesting that he didn't allude one bit to it. I thought he'd have to. And the more I thought about his choice of not to do it, I thought again, this is the thing that Republicans just hate about him. His coolness. This was coolness. He wasn't going to let Iran upstage his State of the Union address, even though there might have been an effort on the country's part to do so. He also knew that because of the last year or two, his Secretary of State, John Kerry, had been in talks, for God, if you were to add up the hours, hundreds of hours of talks with Iranian big shots. Foreign minister, and all those others. So, guess what? When you talk to your enemy, instead of bombing them. When you talk to your enemy, as this administration believes, you establish a relationship. It doesn't have to be warm and cuddly, but you have each other's phone numbers. You know each other as people. And so when this thing happened yesterday, John Kerry could literally pick up the phone and call a guy he might even like, and who might even like him after whatever, and say, hey, buddy, God, Jesus, this was, come on. And lo and behold, it works. No Sixth Fleet, no chest thumping, no macho verbiage and poses. Everybody's saying, a mistake, drifted over there. We were not doing anything untoward, blah, blah, blah. Our guys are out. They're back in American hands. No harm, no foul. And if you had let the hysteria mongers have control of that situation, it would not have played out like that. When the president was leaving after his speech and threading through the throng, he was glad-handing and smiling and blah, 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 and stopping to autograph things. Boy, I feel sorry for him. What a pain in the neck. First of all, the thing had not been resolved, and I'm sure all he wanted to do is get the hell out and make sure things were under control. But there's this stagecraft to be attended to, and he did it well. But as he's making his way out, he encounters his Secretary of State, John Kerry. The smile leaves his face. He and Kerry heads together for just like, who knows, 10, 15 seconds. But I'm sure whatever was said, yeah, don't worry, yeah. So business is being done without the bellicosity, which is just knee-jerk with Republicans who think strength has to do with macho posturing. Anyway, I'll miss Barack Obama. I'll miss those speeches. I'll miss his eloquence, his delivery, his humanity, and his coolness. It's the coolness that must drive the Obama haters craziest. It's the coolness. Not only is he cool, but he is a bit cocky. Now, there's one thing. You got a black guy who somehow made his way into the White House. The White House! We were talking yesterday about Whitesboro, White House. He makes his way into the White House. And on top of it, as if that's not outrageous enough, he has the temerity to be cocky. Coolly cocky. I swear that his manner drives racists, even people who don't realize that's why they hate him, drives them nuts. We've seen it play out, have we not? Nuts. Okay. What else? Anything else? I mean, I don't have anything specific to say. I liked it because it wasn't the usual kind of speech. It wasn't a laundry list kind of thing. And because of that, you didn't get as much, interruption from applause, up, down. That didn't happen as much. I really appreciated that in general. We didn't have to suffer through the stories of all the people in the balcony with the First Lady and stuff. He really dispensed with a lot of the stuff that's usually there. He did, however, lie. At the very beginning, he said he was going to keep it shorter. And I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I didn't have a stopwatch, but I don't think so. So I am such an empath that at one point, when I couldn't get Paul Ryan's face off my TV, I began to imagine what he was thinking. I was looking at Paul Ryan's face and imagine he's sitting there in this position of power. Number 3. They're all up there. It's the president, the vice president, and the Speaker of the House. And he's looking at the president's back. And as I said, you could see his discomfort. But he even started twitching a few times. Like I love when the president set off like involuntary twitches and ticks. It happened a few times. Perhaps you noted it too. Because I didn't have a pen and paper in hand, I couldn't note what exactly set off. But every once in a while, he would like get a little spasm. And anyway, I kept trying to think, what's he thinking? What's he thinking? And when the president would be so eloquently stating my view, it was my view too. That's why I like the speech. My view. And I'm thinking, for so many State of the Union addresses, I have the same reaction. How could anybody disagree with this? How could anybody not be saying, yes, yes, yes? And I'm thinking, looking at Ryan, he's not agreeing with this. And then I thought, he's an intelligent man. Is any of this getting through where he's thinking, well, he's got a point, but we got to figure out how to... And then I thought, I don't know. Are we capable anymore of listening to someone with whom we have, such disagreement, with whom we tangle on issues? Are we, and I'm not just saying Paul Ryan, are we capable anymore of hearing them? So I realized that Ryan probably isn't hearing him. It's that far gone. I also thought if you were to put bubbles over his head of what he was thinking, I think he was also thinking, man, I want to be him. And I have little doubt that thought, even if it was formed that fully, you're sitting there, you're young, you've gotten to number 3, you were begged to fill the position. And he's thinking, that could be me. Which, of course, sent chills down my spine when I started imagining what was going on in Paul Ryan's head. The Ayn Rand devotee. So when the president was talking about things like that, and I'm thinking, this guy is a Ayn Rand nut. That, of course, when I'm thinking, of course, the president's making total sense, blah, 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 blah. Ryan isn't hearing any of that. It totally conflicts with his reality, with his worldview, with how he has ordered his life and how do we, I don't know. Anyway, I thought it was a hell of a speech. What else I got? Okay, actually, this is sort of heavy, but speaking of that, can we open our... I've been... I don't always shoot my mouth off without giving myself some time to arrive at a reasoned opinion although I do shoot my mouth off immediately with opinions. But I sometimes, I've been wrestling with something. And I'm going to put it out to you guys. I'm going to assume that most of my audience is of a liberal and or progressive bent. And I'm going to also assume that many of you share, although I know some don't, my sense of immigrants and these diasporas and migrations of people as something not necessarily to be feared, but something, that can add texture, diversity, granted a lot of problems too, but to a country. And I want to talk about the Syrian refugees, okay? Because I've been wrestling with some stuff. When this event, which at first was really not, which was tamped down, which we didn't hear about immediately, the event being the accosting and sexual assault of women in Cologne, Germany on New Year's Eve. Do we all know what I'm talking about? Apparently, mobs of men were accosting women in groups of 5 and 6. They would surround a woman. They would steal her purse, and then they would grope, assault. One woman has said she was actually raped, and and I thought, geez, that sounds familiar. Why does this? I'm reading a description of something that sounds so familiar, and then I remembered Tahrir Square, Egypt, Arab springtime. And this was happening a lot there, to the point where any woman who walked out in public was taking her life in her hands. And you'll recall that an American journalist, television journalist, Laura Logan, was herself accosted and raped in Tahrir Square. Same kind of thing. We know, according to the German authorities, that a lot of the men that have been charged with these assaults in Cologne were from the Middle East and North Africa. There are 31 suspects, I understand, that have been identified so far. 18, are from the Middle East, North Africa. There's one American, apparently. There's a few Germans getting in on the fun. But what I want to talk about is our reactions to it. When I first heard this, and heard that some of these were the refugees who had come into Germany since this migration had begun, I felt deflated. I felt defensive. Because I thought, oh shit. This is the kind of thing that is going to give the xenophobes, the right-wing nationalists, the anti-immigrant crowd, the racist crowd, this is going to give them some big, big, big fodder. And so I wanted to it didn't help my case where, yes, take these people in, look at their suffering, blah, 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 because it instead absolutely played into the xenophobic hysterical warnings. These people are not us. They're bringing their culture and their ideas to our countries, and they don't get us. They don't understand our liberal, democratic culture, secular culture, even if you're talking about Europe. And they're going to upend everything. And how are they going to possibly fit in? And I'm thinking, as difficult as this is, maybe they got a point. Because if maybe those xenophobes who I hate have a point, then where does that put me? This is the problem of opening your head and listening to other people and not discounting in a knee-jerk fashion everything they say, because sometimes they have a point. They have a point. But where do you go with that? I'm struggling with this. It's since come to the fore that a similar event happened in Sweden this summer. And believe it or not, the reality of that assault of women at a festival in Stockholm never made it into the news. The police didn't say a word. And then a reporter broke the story months after the event, broke the story and said that there had been an institutional cover-up by the police. Why would they cover up a bunch of marauding people accosting women? Why? For the same reason I didn't want to talk about this today. It went against the narrative that the Swedish government, Sweden and Germany, are the two most welcoming. They've welcomed the most refugees. And there was fear by the authorities in Sweden that knowledge that a bunch of Swedish women had been attacked by Middle Eastern men who had come into the country as part of this refugee stream, had been suppressed. I forgot where that thing started. I'm sorry. They did it because they didn't want to lend credence to the right-wingers. Well, I'm sorry, you can't cover up reality just because it doesn't comfortably fit into your opinions. The Swedish government and the law enforcement authorities there are worried that a growing right-wing backlash against all of the difficulties caused by bringing in people from another culture, another country with other language and all that kind, and other religion and other whatever, ethnic, racial, blah, blah, blah. They're huge, and they're struggling to deal with it and also to be humane. And if some of those refugees engage in the kind of behavior that the right-wingers and the xenophobes have been saying, this is what is going to happen, and then it does, why, there is a fear that allowing that information to be out there is going to mean that there's going to be increasing trouble. The police in Sweden, it's believed, hesitated to publicize the assaults for fear of stoking revenge attacks against innocent immigrants by lunatic haters. But still, you cannot deny a reality. And the reality is this thing happened in Stockholm, and the same reaction by authorities in Germany to the Cologne incident. It happened, and now we know it happened twice. The same thing that happened in Cairo. Is this, and what does this tell us? Does it tell us anything? We know that it is a gift, these attacks, to the right. Because not only are they able to say, you see, these people don't get it. They don't understand that women are not fair game, not in our culture. This is a gift to the haters, because also it proves that the authorities in Stockholm, not just the police, but also the media, are withholding information that buttresses the right's fears. And so charges of a cover-up by the authorities in Sweden are not incorrect. There was a cover-up. And there was a bit of an attempt in Cologne by the Germans. Here is something written by a German woman in a German paper. She was wrestling with this stuff too. She points out, as quick as the right was to use these attacks as a weapon against refugees, the left, she charged, moved just as fast to deflect the blame. In fact, the Minister of Justice in Germany initially said that organized crime was behind the attacks. That's bullshit. So she says, in other words, precisely when the country, Germany, needs a cool-headed conversation about the impact of this new refugee population, instead, everybody is just running for a seat on the left or on the right, where they belong, wherever, afraid to remain in the middle. Apparently undecided. And I'm thinking the middle. The middle's an uncomfortable place to be now, isn't it? First of all, it's not tidy, the middle. If you're in the middle on this, you have to acknowledge that there is a clash of cultures apparent in these attacks. But that doesn't comfortably fit into a liberal view of all people being somehow equal, not wanting to condemn another culture. But if that other culture is a culture of misogyny, if that other culture that you're importing is a culture where women don't count, then is it wise to open your arms and welcome those people in. Those people. Now, there's something called a global gender gap report, which the World Economic Forum puts out on a yearly basis, which tries to rank countries on whether or not, if you're a woman, you'd want to be there. Okay? At the bottom of the list, every country at the bottom of the list are Muslim countries. This is not surprising. A Pew survey 2 years ago of Muslims globally about women, found such a disparity between how women are viewed in that culture as opposed to the Western culture. 92% of Moroccans, 87% of Palestinians signed off on a wife must always obey her husband. Now, see, there are Americans who think that, the Christian right. But generally speaking, that doesn't fly anymore with most Americans and most Europeans. So we can talk about multiculturalism and diversity till we're blue in the face, but standing in the middle and looking, I'm just saying, I'm in the middle right now, and I'm really uncomfortable. Somebody said, you could say that in the spirit of Christian charity, Angela Merkel and other Swedish leaders have welcomed in to their countries a culture of misogyny. As I was thinking about this, I was thinking, well, maybe we should just let women and children in. Take in their women. Take in their kids. But of course you can't do that. I don't know. I do think that this points out that we all, no matter what our point of view is, that we all are sometimes dishonest with ourselves, and that we take the easy way out, which is just to run over to our side and then shut out things that don't fit they don't fit neatly. They complicate our position. What do you mean a xenophobe can be right about something? I don't know. So anyway, I'll end this. I won't make you listen to my angst anymore on this. I'll just end it with that German woman. She's the editor of the opinion page of Der Tagesspiegel. She says the irony is that the Cologne attacks, by highlighting the issue of refugees and their children, and their culture, raise an incredibly important question, and yet at the same time make it almost impossible to have a reasonable conversation about it. Integration will fail, she says, if Germany cannot resolve the tension, the obvious tension between its secular, liberal laws and culture and the patriarchal and religiously conservative worldview that some refugees are bringing with them. We cannot avoid that question out of fear of feeding the far right. Because these attacks feed them, and understandably so. If I was a xenophobe and I read about the attacks in Cologne, then found out about the cover-up in Stockholm, man, I would be sky high with joy. Because it absolutely underscores my narrative. And if you're on the other side, you can't avoid it. You can't pretend it didn't happen. Well, that's what we're doing. Reality is messy. It's rarely cut and dried. And this is an example of that. And yet, we're always saying, I think we tend to look at the other side and think, oh, God, they're just impervious to any acknowledgement that we're right about this. Well, I just want to pose the uncomfortable thought that we, in our self-righteous assuredness, are often impervious as well. Because anytime we stake out a position, and it's important to us, to our sense of who we are, to our sense of our humanity, and then something happens really that is that doesn't fit or that complicates, the courageous thing is to acknowledge it and to, I don't know. Just saying. Okay, so, Chuck on State of the Union. Lynn, Paul Ryan's expression to me was the type of expression I would make if I were disgusted and didn't want to be there. Well, he sure looked, miserable. CBS called it his poker face. But Chuck says, if that's true, let's hope he doesn't play poker. Yeah, he was definitely, that was not a neutral face. It occurred to me that Joe Biden only need clap his hands to make Paul Ryan look disagreeable. I like how Obama addressed the country bashing that's been so prevalent in the Republicans' campaign. He basically said, it's okay to bash me, but it's not okay to bash this country. And then he enumerated the many positives that have occurred in his 7-year run, and Chuck said it was brilliant. I thought it was too. But, I'm just saying, there are people... It's interesting. I understand Nikki Haley avoided the curse of the rebuttal speech because people are giving her high marks. I listened somewhat, and I couldn't look at her. I don't know why. The camera was too close to her, and she had awful eye makeup on. Sexist. Wouldn't have said that about a man. Well, yeah, because they don't wear any eye makeup. Anyway, I love that she called out Trump essentially too, and called out the haters too. That's good. That was good. Smart. And I love that Obama just... Cruz went right after Cruz and went right after. You can't see it there. Celine's trying to immediately see.
I just want to know what's
There was such a close-up on my TV. This is what you get with high-definition television. You get too much. It was too close to her face, and then her eyes looked really, and there was like black all around them, and I just don't. Huh? Yeah, whatever. Okay, so there's that. Here's something I've also wanted to talk about. While Americans cower under their beds, fearing that some Middle Eastern terrorist is going to slit their throats, I always like to draw attention to the fact that Americans should should look at realistically, really what is to be feared. And I've pointed out that domestic terror by Americans, white Americans, white Christian Americans, is a much bigger problem in this country. But when most Americans say or hear the word terrorist, they don't picture a white Christian American, do they? No. It doesn't even get anywhere near their consciousness. A terrorist has brown skin, black hair, and they worship Allah. Right. So here's what I want to remind you. In the first year of Barack Obama's presidency, his initial head of Homeland Security was Janet Napolitano. Remember her? And it was, I don't know if it was announced, I'm trying to remember, or somebody, she established an office of extremism and radicalization. And this was an office in Department of Homeland Security that was supposed to watch domestic threats of terror. Somehow some memo about it was leaked and all hell broke loose. Do you remember this? I remember because the memo said, it warned that the United States, that the government had to be aware of the growing anti-government movement that was becoming stronger and more radicalized in this country, and were in fact arming themselves and were a threat to our national security. The memo, here's where the real flashpoint was. The memo also warned that American military coming back from the wonderful forays in Iraq and Afghanistan might be potential recruits to these anti-government right-wingers and would bring with them a great deal of military knowledge. And the memo went on to say we need to be cognizant of the threat of lone wolf extremists in our country that are coming from this anti-government right wing. All hell broke loose. Republicans went berserk. How dare you accuse our fine men and women of being potential terrorists? What the heck? How are you? I mean, this anti-Christian, anti-blah, blah, 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 blah. And the media went nuts. Fox News went nuts. And the thing that made me the craziest is that, was it Napolitano? She blinked. She backed away. She backed down. I remember thinking, no, Jesus, stand your ground, for God's sakes. You're right. We need to have people who are actively engaged in watching this threat from within. She apologized, I remember. I went nuts on my radio show. I went nuts, I remember. This is 2009. Janet Napolitano apologized for even thinking that Americans would need to be watched. White Christian men. And she dismantled this entire department. Okay? Okay, I just want to say that since then, and this is from a report put together by West Point. They have actually at West Point a combating terrorism center. And the guys at West Point, you know what they found out? This is from 2013, so it's not quite up to snuff. If it were up to snuff, it'd be even worse. Found this, quote, right-wing extremists have launched an average of 330 attacks a year in this country. What? Talk about things being covered up. 330 attacks a year? And have killed about 250 people. About. We don't even keep... we're fudging this. We don't even know how many Americans have been killed by other Americans in the guise of some kind of right-wing, anti-government attack. Right-wing extremists have launched an average of 330 attacks a year and killed about 250 people between 2002 and 2011. That's when the guys at West Point, at the military academy, went looking to try to figure out just how much of a threat was this. That's that's something that you don't turn a blind eye to. Since Obama took the presidency, the anti-government militia movement in this country has grown to 276 separate groups. It's a 37% increase since, I want to get this right. In the last 5 years. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks this kind of stuff, said that the militia movement grew explosively after Obama was elected. And his first Secretary of Homeland Security apologized. Apologized to the right wing and to Fox News and to anybody else for establishing a department that would keep an eye on these sons of bitches who are killing Americans. All right, one more thing. A survey of law enforcement agencies last year that was conducted by the Police Executive Forum. So this is obviously some law enforcement group. They did a survey. And you know what they found? They found that 74% of all of the law enforcement agencies polled, and they were numbered almost 400, 74% of them polled cited anti-government extremism as one of the top 3 terrorist threats. The cops know it, but we, the people, are strangely clueless. And media cover it. Well, you know, right now some of these lunatics are up there in Oregon. They have destroyed government property. They have broken into government property. They are doing all this stuff that, believe me, if they were darker skinned, they would have been taken out. I mean, a black guy gets blown away by law enforcement for looking cross-eyed at a cop. These white guys, with all of their military might, can go in to a government-owned facility, take it over, destroy property, and nothing happens. Why? Because the government knows that that's what they want. They want to fight. And let me tell you something. That's what ISIS wants too. And that's why, of course, they've got people in these streams of refugees. They want ISIS. The right wing is thrilled about the attacks in Cologne and Stockholm. So's ISIS. Because they want the xenophobes to win. They want to create a situation where they will be able to say to the Muslim world, they hate your guts. They want to throw you out. They don't think you're people. They're not blah, blah, blah. They're begging for a fight. This is what they have to do. That's what the right-wingers want too. They want to fight. The only way to deny them is to turn your back on them, which is what we're doing, the government's doing, and it is the right thing to do. But it's unsatisfying. It's unsatisfying. Always. The Republicans don't get this. They play into ISIS's hand all the time with their belligerence and bellicosity. They don't get the smart reaction. I'm just saying. Terrorists, no matter whether they worship Jesus or they worship Allah, they are emboldened when they are given an opportunity to have their story somehow supported by the actions of the government. Fools play into their hands. And God, there's a lot of fools around right now. Anyway, I don't know if I'm making any sense today, but I did want to share that. Okay. Did you see that the Republicans met the other day in a forum on poverty? You know what they decided? Poverty is the fault of liberals. Poverty is the fault of liberals making government try to help the poor. They decided that welfare, liberal solution, weakened the poor people's moral spine. We weakened these poor people, and then we made them dependent. Anyway, never mind again that evidence doesn't support any of this. The United States has, by measurement, some of the most industrious workers in the world. Americans work hard, harder, and are more productive than almost any other workforce in the world, if not the. But our economic system, this capitalism we have right now, doesn't ensure that a person working hard is going to be able to support themselves and or their families. No other developed nation would tolerate this. The United States spends less on the so-called safety net, social safety net, than any other civilized world, per capita I'm talking about. Republicans think capitalism, the free market, it lifts all boats. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. One of the guys who talked to these Republicans at this event is from the right-wing think tank, the American, what do you call that place? American Enterprise Institute, thank you. And he told the Republicans this: we know that if conservatives listen to this, capture the traits that are typically associated with liberals, empathy and compassion. Listen to that. He sees empathy and compassion is something that can be captured. I don't even understand what he's saying when he says that. We're going to capture, you see, the empathy and compassion that these liberals have. And then we'll be able to persuade enough voters, like the independents, that we too are serious about poverty issues and we can take the White House. So watch as Republicans try to be careful. I mean, I don't know if it's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where they're going to, if a liberal might be accosted by a Republican, sucking the empathy and compassion out of them. I'm not quite sure how you capture empathy. Hard for the Republicans on this issue, since almost every single idea they have is about helping the rich. Almost every policy they put forward benefits the rich, because they still believe that if only the rich get richer, then all our boats will be lifted. How can they still believe that when we're seeing this ripping away of the American middle class? Fascinating. Kinda, sorta. Okay. Oh, geez. Look at what time it is. What? I have a call now after 60 minutes of blabbling by myself? Hello?
Hi, Lynn. How are you doing? I'm watching you on the screen on the laptop right now.
Oh, okay. So
you want to wave?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, the reason I was just calling you is I heard you were doing your lamenting about the terrorist attacks and so on and so forth, and who they actually are. And in America, there's more white groups that are terrorist than Muslim or what have you. And I'd like to explain possibly the difference is that, of course, there's so many of these little white or these white extremist groups. They're all over the place. You could, I mean, as far as listed as being terrorist, or whatever. I mean, there's these, there might be a small motorcycle gang. There could be these little, a group of skinheads, a group of Nazis, they're all over the place, no matter, they're everywhere. But, they're not organized into this global group of, we're going to go out and blow up, synagogues or what have you. Whereas once you find the Muslim ones, like let's just say the one San Bernardino, whenever that happens, there's ISIS standing up there. Yeah, that's good. That's that's a worldwide thing. That's covering the globe. These little skinhead groups unless they do something.
But they do things. I mean, I'm saying the body count is real.
Well,
they do kill people.
Yeah, but you don't. Well, if we don't hear about it, I don't know.
Well, as I said, the West Point thing said
too. The media doesn't report it, and we don't know about it. But again, like those goofballs that are occupying that thing up in Oregon, you don't really hear about them anymore. Apparently, somebody's it's easy to get them out. Just shut off their thing, block the road, and who cares? Whatever happens, they'll eventually go away as soon as the media goes away, and that's the end of that. But like even the gent that shot at the Planned Parenthood place out in Colorado, you never heard of one. I mean, he did it on his own. He wasn't part of any, kill the doctors, save the babies group or something like that, or
but that kind of verbiage, which is out there, resonated with him.
Apparently,
so he's a lone wolf. He's exactly what.
There's not one group that was saying, "Yep, that's us. Yep, he did the right thing."
Well, I think there probably
jumped up and said that, did they?
No. I suspect they did.
Them, but no, not one group jumped up to say, "Yep, that's us." I mean, and just to take it as a worldwide thing, you're talking about, the right wing here. Well, the right wing and the Republicans are playing right into ISIS. They're doing exactly. What did the French ever do to upset the Muslims?
Algeria.
When was that?
Listen, not too long ago. Well, but that's huge.
Was that their main reason for all that?
I have no idea. The French have a huge Muslim population that is not well integrated into the culture, they're living in poverty. I don't know. That's a whole big...
Did they welcome them in?
I don't know about welcoming them if they end up...
They didn't keep them out. I don't know. I didn't hear of any great jump up and down saying, "Keep out the Muslims." In French, I don't know what it would be.
Oh, no. What do you mean? I mean, there's that Marie Le Pen and the right wing. No, that's all about keeping... No. They've been around forever. Her dad's been around forever. They want these people out. They're not French.
But what happened in their recent election?
Le Pen had a little bit of a setback.
You got it.
Yeah, don't worry about it, because I have to tell you, the right wing in France is huge and growing. It might have had a setback in this election, but I don't... The right wing has taken over the Polish government. Have you been paying any attention to that?
I didn't hear about... Well, I know that they're saying keep them out of our country. Well, look,
it's unbelievable.
Let's just look at it that way then. Take that as an example. Excuse me. How many Muslim attacks have there been in Poland?
I don't think there have been many at all, if any.
Well,
no, but they're afraid. They're.
And look what happened in Germany just recently. They're making the big deal about the what happened on New Year's Eve. I've
been talking about that.
And what did the Germans ever do other than welcome everybody? Say, let's let them in. So.
Okay. Listen, I got to go because I'm over. No, I'm over my time.
I know. Most of us are.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
I appreciate the call. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'm sorry we can't.
Shalom.
Shalom. I'm sorry we can't back and forth a little bit more, but no, make no mistake. The far right, nationalistic, xenophobic. Parts of Europe are on the rise, and the kind of thing that happened in Cologne and Stockholm and Paris and all the rest only, of course, feed it. Of course. I was saying before, maybe they have a bit of a point. I don't know, okay? Something is awry. That statement will work on any day, on any issue, okay? Hey, enjoy this lovely frozen day, but blue sky and sun, and I'll talk at you again in 23 hours.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.